Coming up on The Returned.
I pull up on the intersection. I put my foot on the brake and I died in my car. I had a widowmaker heart attack. I'm not breathing. My heart's not beating. And
Hi, and welcome to The Returned. The truth always follows you back. Hi, and welcome to The Returned, a place where we share near-death stories, out-of-body experiences, spiritual awakenings, signs from spirit, and the journeys of healers and lightworkers from around the world. Today, we sit with Kevin Mohatt, a near-death experiencer who was clinically dead for over 20 minutes following a widowmaker heart attack. Kevin, welcome to The Returned.
thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Kevin, before we get to the heart of our conversation today, I would like to ground the audience in who you were before this experience. And also, did religion or spirituality play a role in your life or your upbringing?
Okay. I was born in Iowa, raised in Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska. I was born in 1962. I write about it a lot in my book, about how I started, but my brother and I and my mom were left alone when I was 5 years old. My father left us, and so it was just the three of us, and raised in Omaha, and we moved out here to Arizona for a brief amount of time, and then my mom remarried very quickly, and we moved back to Omaha, and I was raised then in a Catholic grade school from grades 1 through 8, and was baptized in the Catholic school. But I've been in a lot of different places of faith, I guess. Presbyterian, Catholic. My mom was Pentecostal and Baptist. We had it all. And so, it was an awful lot. And I played a lot of music growing up. I played in the Catholic school, Catholic church. And then I left Omaha and I moved out here in 1982. And so spiritually, I never really had a strong connection spiritually growing up, things of that nature. I've always raised in a church, which is more of a religious thing. And so I still have and maintain a belief in Jesus Christ, but from a different point in perspective at this point, I can say. I spent 10 years from about 2001 to right around 2011 playing lead guitar in a big box church, big worship band and all of that. And that was a spiritual experience for me, but it was not exactly what I think my life is turned into now. I kind of look back on that, and I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I don't regret it. But I also kind of see that during that period of time, I was more worshiping my lead guitar than I was my spirituality. So, being behind the green curtain on that one, you kind of see what goes on behind the church as compared to what happens from the front looking in. And, it's changed for me. If I walk into a place of worship and the smoke machines are going off and the lights are twisting and all that, I tend to lose my feeling for that location. That is a little bit more of that plastic Jesus on the dashboard for me. And I lost a desire to really surround myself in that environment. But I will say on the contrast, I have a daily, constant, never-ending conversation with God in my heart, in my spirit. I am in prayer constantly, and I have faith in what I'm praying for. I believe strongly that I've been connected to that. And I just have a powerful belief system of faith. And faith has brought me a tremendous amount of hope when I didn't have much hope left at all. And I can say that that was probably the crescendo of turning points after my cardiac arrest and the near-death experience I'll describe to y'all, and the aftermath, which was devastating. There was nothing good about the aftermath of my near-death experience for quite a long time. It was devastating. We lost everything. Everything. I mean, everything.
That
Yeah.
I am so sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So the miracle of my 1% club participation was followed by devastation, without any kind of a description other than the fine china of our life was set on a very wonderful table on a beautiful tablecloth, and somehow, some way, somewhere, God took that tablecloth and pulled it, and all of that china ended up on the ground. And that's about the best description I can give it, because it was in shambles. And so that's what led me to really share my story, because people have asked me about this near-death experience, and do I believe in God, and does God cause pain, and if God was everything, why is there suffering, right? And I got an answer for that, but that's the difference. So I grew up in a religious family, religious background, a religious environment. And since this experience, it has totally changed. I have a very deeply connected spiritual person, and it's away from the trappings of what I see in church. Not that it's a bad place to go. I think it's a place you can find your spirit and find God if you were looking at that. But I'm a person who doesn't believe that you have to go there to experience God. I believe that God is in me, and I'm His temple, and that when I go to a church, and I do, and if I have an experience with other people, it's what's in my heart and in my spirit that is really speaking to me. It's not so much the music anymore, or the lights, or the ice cream social, or those things. That's more on a different level. So that's a bit of the contrast.
Kevin, I actually agree with you. I love what you said about God being in your temple. I believe that. I have a conversation with God too. I am prayer a lot of times of the day. I have a very open. I feel like I have a very open communication, and I don't go to church. However, I don't judge either. So if someone wants to go, go.
Go.
I just feel like you're getting there, and whichever way you get there is good, I think. But
I
having
agree.
said that, can you walk us into what you experienced that day?
Sure. I'll give you the time frame. It was Valentine's Day of 2022, and part of the I don't want to say tragedy, but near tragedy of that day was we started that morning, Valentine's Day, my wife and I. We've been married now for 33 years, but we started that morning in a major argument. Yeah. Valentine's Day, I'd gotten up and I'd bought the roses, and I went and got chocolate for her, and I'd do what I always do, and made her coffee and all that. And we were kind of busy with our grandkids. And I think she just woke up a little bit on the wrong side of the bed, and my expectations were higher than what her, we just were not on the same page. But, that's being married. And whatever happened that morning, she and I can't really remember what it was about, but it was a pretty good argument of some sort. And we left and we parted ways that morning without saying, I love you. Yeah, that was rough. And she decided she just was going to go shopping. And that's generally where she would go when she needed to cool off. And I decided I wanted to go play ice hockey. And so she said, fine, go play hockey then. And we parted each other's ways without saying I love you and without really connecting on the way out the door. So she was shopping and I was getting ready to go play hockey. And I've been playing hockey most of my life, since I was a young boy. And I'm in really good physical shape. I don't drink. I don't smoke. And I've been playing hockey. I have a 5th degree black belt. So I did that for 20 years professionally. So I'm in rather good shape. And for a man at that time, I was 60. So I made it to the ice rink at noon, and they like to call me Moses because I'm playing with a bunch of 24 and 25-year-olds, and I'm the oldest guy in the group. So we chirp each other. If you're from Canada and you ever watch the hockey game, you know that we get after each other a little bit. So those guys are chirping me. They said, watch out for Moses, unless he runs into you, then he's a tree stump. So careful, But that's how we started in the locker room, and these guys were all young and had girlfriends and stuff. And I couldn't help but think about, here I am, and I was still mad about the argument, and I'm about to go play hockey. I had COVID about a month and a half earlier, and I got pretty sick with it. And so I was getting back into it, and my air was coming back, and I was physically just kind of getting back into shape. So I'm out there playing for what was about 2 periods of hockey, doing pretty good, keeping up with all the boys. And we started into the 3rd period. It was a pickup game. So, nothing too official, but it was just a bunch of guys who got together and played hockey, And about halfway through that, out of nowhere, I could barely move. And my legs got heavy. My body got heavy. I could hardly skate anymore. I was down to a glide, and I was like, what is going on? I mean, I literally I was out of it, and I just got gassed, and I never got tired playing hockey. I'm pretty good at that. And this has got to be COVID again, And so I said to the guys, I got to go. And they chirped me off the ice. See you later, Moses, go part the waters. And I'm like, yeah, right. And, I made it to the locker room. And I was really struggling. This was something for people out there to hear. This is what happens to you just before something like this occurs. And I got to the point where I could barely get my skates off my feet. And I was begging them off my feet. I could hardly get out of there. And so I got out of that locker room as fast as I could. And I decided I was just going to go home, take a shower, and sleep it off. And we lived literally 2 miles maybe from the ice rink. And I threw all my stuff in my car, and I'm on my way home. I'm heading east on the road that just leads to our home. And I pull up on the intersection about 2 cars in on a yellow light. I put my foot on the brake and I died in my car. Yeah, I had a widowmaker heart attack in my car with my foot on the brake. And a widowmaker is your heart stops beating. And my heart went into this unsustainable rhythm called VFib or VFibrillation, which means it was just basically quivering. It's not beating. It's not passing blood. It's just wiggling a little bit. And I'm in my car. I'm not breathing. My heart's not beating, and my foot's on the brake, and I've passed away. And in doing so, I slumped underneath my wheel of my car, and my body draped over the console and put my car into park. Yeah, I don't remember any of this, but that's what happened. They found me tangled in my seatbelt, draped over the console with my foot still on the brake, but I had put my car into park. And by a witness behind me, her name was Angel. believe it or not. I can't make it up. Her name is Angel. And I had found her about maybe 3 or 4 months later through the police reports and all that. I wanted to thank everybody. And I found her through the police report. Actually, the police department found her for me because they had redacted all of her number out. But we talked, and I at this point, I did not know how long I had been in my car. And she said, well, a friend had sent her a movie on her video, on her telephone. So she's in traffic waiting for me to go with her foot on the brake, and she's watching the video on her phone. And she said she pretty much finished the video, and people were now starting to honk at her, like, hey, let's go. And then she looked up, and it was just me and her in the intersection, not in the intersection, but just prior to the intersection. Everybody else was driving around and, doing the California, hey, move on, And she realized I wasn't going anywhere, but she looked and there was nobody in her. All she saw was my seatbelt, but nobody in it. But she saw the seatbelt. And so she said to me that somebody or something tapped her on the shoulder. And scared the heck out of her, she said, because she thought somebody was in her car with her. And it frightened her. And so she got out of her car and she was driven to go and see what was happening. So she walked around and she opened up my car door, which was unlocked because my car was parked. And she opened the car door, and there I was. I was purple and had froth all over myself, and my heart was not beating, and I was not breathing, and I was stuck kind of underneath the wheel, and I was too big for her to get out of the car, so she was panicking, and she waved down another man named David, and he came to her, and she was frantic, saying this man is not breathing, and his heart's not beating, but she couldn't get me out. So he was able to get my seatbelt undone, and the two of them dragged me out of the car and laid me in the street. And we call it the gore lane here. It's that triangle where they paint, if you're going to turn left or you're going to go forward, there's that isosceles triangle on the paint. I was in that triangle area. And Angel had some health experience, so she started to do CPR. And David called 911, and this is where it got a little bit crazy, a little bit mixed up. The call went into 911 as a motorist in distress. Instead of a dead dude in his car, it was a motorist in distress. And so she was doing CPR on me. A police officer happened to be in the neighborhood, heard the call of motorists in distress, so she responded. They have me on the ground. She's doing CPR. The police officer, after 200 compressions from Angel, she took over, and she did 400 compressions on me. And another police officer showed up and stepped in because this officer was getting tired. And so the other officer stepped in, and ultimately he did 650 more compressions on me. But during that process, he said, this man's code. He's not going anywhere. We got to get somebody here. So what had happened was, I come to find out later, and across the street, about 1,500 yards away, was actually a fire department. But they were offline that day. They were training. They weren't taking calls from 911. So they had sent a fire department, an engine, and an ambulance from another part of town to come to me because it was just a motorist in distress. It wasn't anything beyond that. So here they are. They're already at about 1,250 compressions on me, and they push the code. There's like a button on their mic. They push it, and it's a tone that goes out to all the fire departments and all the police cars. So we've got a code situation. All units respond that are kind of close. Well, that's when the fire department across the street heard that. And he says, well, we're right here. Okay. So I find this out later, but they responded with their engine just across the street, and the other fire department continued with their ambulance, but turned their engine around. And this matters because there were two different departments that converged to me, and it took them between 10 and 12 minutes or so to get to me based on what I saw in the 911 report. So I've been in my car now, Angel said, likely 2, 3, maybe more minutes, which is right around 3 traffic lights before she pulls me out. They're giving me CPR. Then when the police show up, and now it's been 10 to 12 minutes before the fire department shows up. So I'm gone. They've been doing CPR on me, and I'm not okay. So the fire department shows up. They do all they can, and they end up buttoning me up into an ambulance and sending me off to the hospital. I'm still in VFib. And so my heart had responded, and then it went back. So it was kind of at the very end of it, it was responding and back. What they had done some life-saving procedures on me and got me back, but then it went back to VFib. So I wasn't going to stay in a good heart rhythm. So the paramedic that was in the ambulance on Valentine's Day, her name was Valentine, the last name. Again, I can't make this up. I'm like, really? Okay. So she said when I met her that when they were backing up into the emergency room, I was still in this light rhythm that they had established a very light rhythm by now. But then my heart went into VFib again, and the machine started to tell her to give me another shock. Well, they'd already given me the whole protocol of the amount of shocks. And so she turned it down, said a prayer, and hit the button. And she said I sat up and groaned. And then I laid back down and my heart went back into VFib. And so they hustled me right into a cath lab, which is where they put a catheter in your artery, goes into your heart. And that's where they found a 3-inch blood clot in my main artery. It's called the LAD artery, the left anterior descending artery to be exact. And they pushed that blood clot out, which they said was anomalous. It was a different kind of a blood clot than an old guy blood clot where you have plaque and all that, which I don't have any plaque. So, I mean, I'm very healthy. They have a 25-year-old heart. So they put a couple stents in and brought me back. And so they were very, very concerned about an anoxic brain injury. So they put me under sedation, and here I was. So I'll fast forward to the experience. I walk out of this hospital. This Monday, it was Valentine's Day. I walk out of there on Saturday. They can't believe it. They're trying to figure me out. How in the heck did I walk out of there on Saturday? I'm in 1% of the entire planet of people that can have this experience, a widowmaker heart attack, let alone in the street for as long as I did. And I'm talking about it. Okay. They're going, what the heck? And so they determined, at least they had a strong idea that Thursday of that week before I walked out of there, a lot of cardiologists and neurologists with students literally walked in and out of my room going, what? Tell us what's going on here, And they explained to me that people don't live from this experience. And I'm like, well, here I am. And it was determined that it was because I was playing ice hockey. If you know anything about ice hockey, you get totally gassed playing ice hockey, and it's very cardiovascular. That's why you take shifts. You in the middle of it, I got to go. And off you go sit down and take a break. Well, I had been playing for a good long time, hour and 10, 15 minutes. So my bloodstream is very oxygenated, and I had a lot of red blood cells and oxygen in my blood already. So the CPR that they gave me right away, and literally, it was like 5 minutes from leaving the rink to where I was getting CPR. That's how close it was, that I was getting CPR, very good CPR, that oxygenated my brain. Everything else had failed. My kidneys shut off, my lungs collapsed, all my organs stopped working. The blood left my retina and my ears, so it even started to pool a little bit, but my brain was getting oxygen. So that's what they've determined why I did not receive an anoxic brain injury. At the time, I was still pretty much fuzzy, but I did not have a damaged brain. I've been through the deep dive, neurology, tons of neurologists. I've been interviewed by major hospitals and major universities trying to figure out did I have an injury to my brain? Because it's important, for a person who has a widowmaker, what they could do to help the other person that has one so they could survive it. Come find out, healthy lifestyle, immediate CPR that they did not give up. They didn't give up on that. And I had a lot of oxygen in my system at the time. And so that's what they determined. So here I am. I walk out of there on Saturday. spend the weekend pretty fuzzy and beat up. I'd had my heart punched over 1,200 times, and my sternum, from fighting for a living, has been broken 3 times. So they didn't break any ribs on me. They literally went right through my sternum like butter. That's what Angel told me. Right? I said, "What, Angel? How'd that sound?" Because I used to teach CPR, and I've done CPR. And she said it surprised her because it was so easy. And I said, "Okay." So Monday, a week later, morning, about 9:00, we went to a cardiologist, the man that saved my life, actually. And he basically told me that about the widowmaker and how my heart had been damaged. I've got a very damaged heart, and I'm not out of the woods yet. So they're going to put me in a protocol, and they're going to keep an eye on me. And that's basically what he said. I didn't know anything about CPR at the time. I didn't know anything about how much CPR or who was doing CPR. I didn't know who my responders were. I didn't know where they came from. I didn't know how long I was down yet. I didn't know anything about anything. Nothing was in my head yet. So we're driving home. I'm not driving. My wife, Connie, is driving. And like I said, I was pretty beat up and fuzzy. And also they had me in, and this is part of a joke that I write about in the book, but I was in a bra. Okay. And it had these sensors on it with a big battery that's going to shock me if my heart misbehaves again. But it's a bra. And I kept telling I said, "Connie, it's a bra." And she goes, "It's not a bra. It is. I'm telling you, I know what a bra is. I even know how to unhook it." So there you go. But nonetheless, I'm in this thing and I'm not driving. God forbid my heart would stop again while I'm driving. So she's driving, and we pull up on the way home in the where we're about ready to cross the intersection, same exact spot, 2 cars in, right, at a yellow light. And I was so fuzzy, I didn't really remember that. I didn't remember that part of where this happened at. So I was having like major deja vu at that point. Okay. It was really creepy because it was striking me like something's happened here, but I didn't know. I looked through her window, the driver's side where she was at, and through her window was a light pole, just a regular street light. And I saw that pole and I got a crazy electric chill. It's all I can describe it as. It was just like at first I thought this thing had gone off, this battery thing, but it wasn't that. It was just this crazy electric chill that just vibrated up my spine. And I thought, whoa. And I looked across the street. I never noticed, but there's this fire department. And I said, "It's got to be those people. Come on." So I talked to my wife. We went over across the street. I wanted to thank them. I was sure it had to have been them. I'm alive. They're there. So clearly something happened really quick. And here I am, right? So we drive over there, and I get out and I knock on the door. A little skinny window, and the guy's peeking through the window like this. And I'm like, I point to the intersection, which is just across the road. And his eyes are about that big. He opens up the door and he goes, you were dead. And I'm like, "Not hardly." He goes, "No, you were a corpse." And this guy's like 3 feet off the ground. He's the paramedic that was there first that responded. He goes, "You were a corpse. Come on in." So my wife and I were invited in, and he takes us into the kitchen. And here's the firemen. They're all a bunch of kids. And an assistant chief who's my age, and he's been a white-haired guy, and he's been doing this for like 45 years. And they're all looking at me. And I mean, I've done CPR on somebody. Once you've ever done CPR on somebody, you don't forget what they look like. It's a profound experience in itself. And they're all looking, and I could hear these young guys going whispering, "That's that widowmaker dude. That's that widowmaker dude." Right? From a week earlier. So I know I'm in the right spot. That's these people. And the assistant chief's like, "I don't believe it. He goes, in 45 years, I've never had a dead man walk through that door. And here you are. What is it?" And I said, "I'm here." He goes, "Do you know how long you were down?" And I'm like, "No idea." He goes, 20 minutes easy. And I'm like, whoa. Really? That's the first I'd heard that. I didn't realize how long I had been down. He goes, "Oh yeah, you were gone." Fact is, we sent you away. You were not coming back. I found out later, they told everybody at the scene I didn't make it. So here I am, Lazarus, walking in the door on them, and they're all just shocked to see me there talking, let alone alive, right? And he said, I got to know, I've been in this business 45 years. What was it like? And at that point, I had not really had any experience. It didn't hit me. I wasn't like I woke up in ICU with this weird dream or nothing. It was still fuzzy and just kind of blah. But I don't know why, but I still think it had to do with being at the same spot in the car and looking at that pole. Because I shut my eyes and there it is. It's like an IMAX theater, and it still is in my brain. It has never left to that since that moment. I opened it was like boom. It's in 3D Technicolor, no sound, but 3D. It's just there, and I'm looking with my eyes shut at the windows in my mind, and I start to describe this. I said, well. And I have my eyes shut, but I'm talking to him, and I said, I'm on a pole. I'm on a light pole or something. I'm up high, and I'm looking down, and I see a bunch of blue people on a person, and there's a red fire truck, and I said it's got E256 written on it, and there's an ambulance with M252 on it, and it's kind of behind my car, and my car door's open. And I see this group of blue people on top of this person. I realize it's me because I see my feet moving back and forth. Across the street, there's people lined up on the sidewalk in like clusters looking around. There's a police car facing towards the east, another one facing towards the north, kind of perpendicular, blocking traffic off. Into the south, I see in the very distant part of our town, there's a mountain there. It's called Santan Mountain. And I open my eyes up, I see Santan Mountain, and they're looking at me at this point going, what? And I shut my eyes again, and I said, yeah. And there's next to the blue people, and then I held up my hands like this. I go, there's a white envelope like that. But it looks like trash or a paper of some sort, but I held my fingers up. I said it's like 3x3 dimensions. At that point, the man who met me at the door goes, you got to come with us. So he gets up and we follow him around the corner and into the garage where the fire trucks and everything are at. And my wife said, Kevin, look. And it was a red engine with E256 on it. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And he asked me, this paramedic says to me, he goes, how's your arm? And I'm like, well, my right one, I said, it's artificial. He goes, no, the other one. And I'm like, ow, it hurts. And he says it ought to. And he pulls out of the engine a paramedic, like a small suitcase looking thing. And he pulls out of it a green drill. And he goes, whiz, whiz. He goes, I drilled you with this. And I'm like, what? And he goes, dude, your bounce house was flat. I got to drill a hole into your arm, into the bone marrow, so I can get an IV in you. And I'm like, a what? He goes, yeah, it's called an IO. I go, you drilled a hole in me? He goes, exactly. And then out of his bag, he takes this white package and he tosses it to me and I catch it. I go, what's this? And he goes, flip it over. And inside the package was a coiled up tube with a needle and a nozzle on it. And I go, what's this? And he goes, that's what I stick in the hole. And then I put the other part into the IV. I got to get that into you before we can start shocking you. We need to have an IV in you, but you're gone. You're dead. You have no heartbeat. So all of your arteries have collapsed. So that's the only way we can get a blood source. And I'm like, what'd you do with the paper? He said, he's a funny guy. He says, dude, he goes, your bounce house was flat. I got no time for litter laws. I just threw that thing. And I'm like, would I know that? And he's like, then no possible way you would know about that paper. And more importantly, you would not know about the numbers on the vehicles. I go, what do you mean? He goes, because we weren't online that day. We were not taking calls. We were training in-house. So the initial, and I'm like, what? And he said, the initial call went out to station number 2, which is at the other end of town. And then I find out they're station number 6. I'm like, okay. I go, what do you mean? He goes, you just described an engine from station number 6, but you described the ambulance from station number 2. So the E is engine, 25 is Gilbert, 6 is the station house that it belongs in. M is for medical. 25 was for Gilbert, but 2 is for the station house that it belonged in. They initially sent station 2 with their engine and ambulance to me, but once they saw the tone come over, station 6 responded and said, we're right here, turn the other engine back. So that station 2 turned their engine back, but the ambulance kept coming. So 2 different firehouses converged at my scene. He goes, you would not know that. It's impossible for you to know that, let alone to see the paper and where people were parked. I'm telling you, it's exactly the way you described it. And by now, I'm emotional because they had warned me that I would have a anoxic brain injury. They were really, really, really concerned that I was going to have a brain injury is because I was fuzzy. And at the time, I thought my brain was fried. I'm like, there's no way I would know about this stuff. So I shut my eyes again and boom, there it is. It's never left me. This movie is in my head, and I'm again ascribing it. I go, yeah, I see it. And I'm like, I see it. I see this M252, and I see the doors are open. I see people on top of me, and I mean, I'm describing this whole thing. And as I'm describing it, I said, I'm looking south, and I see Santan Mountain, and I'm on this pole, okay? And in Arizona, in the valley here, we have pretty substantial dust storms. Okay, big dust storms. And when you look at them they always have like a helicopter taking a photo of them from the sky and it's literally a wall of dirt. That's just a whole wall just moving across the city. And it's real high. But it's just a wall of, you literally can look at your watch and say, it's coming in 5 minutes. Go get the umbrellas down. You can time it. It's moving so quickly. And I said, I'm looking at Santan Mountain. It looks like a dust storm, but it's not. It's light. It's this crazy wall of light that's as high as you can see, but it's moving at me like a dust storm would. And I said, I see it, and all of a sudden I said, I'm in it. I'm engulfed in this light dust storm kind of feeling, but I'm engulfed in this light, and I'm trying to describe this. I open my eyes and I see it, and I can still see it. I'm trying to describe this light to them. I say, it's not bright, like I can't look at it, but I'm in it. I'm completely engulfed in this very indescribable light. And I'm looking at my hands, and I told him, I said, I can see it kind of off of my hands, so I see myself, my hands in front of me, and they're kind of radiating this light. It's quiet, very, very quiet, and it's super peaceful. And I've been interviewed by a whole lot of people, a couple of the major hospitals and major universities. They're like, describe the peaceful. What was your emotion? I said, I didn't have one. I didn't have emotion. I was just peaceful. It was indescribable. And I've tried to help people to understand it. And I said, it's so hard to describe. It's like trying to describe the color green to a blind man who's never seen green, but you're trying to describe it to them. That's how hard it is to give you the recollection, but it's peaceful. and quiet, and I don't have my life passing before my eyes. I don't see Jesus. I don't have my family there. It's just this light, and it is peaceful. And in this, the only sense of sound, you know what a tuning fork is, where like if you hit your hand on it, it makes a vibration. Take a big one, like a super large, way large tuning fork, and it has that really, really low hertz frequency to it, super low. That was in it. That was the only experience that I could say had any kind of a physicality to it, if anything of that nature, but it was this vibration that was really, really super low, and I could feel it. It was just sort of in me. All right. And I'm in this light, I'm in this total peace. And this is the hard part to describe, but it wasn't that she was there. It wasn't that I heard her, but it was my mother. It was my mom. My mom had passed away a couple years earlier in February, but it wasn't her talking to me. It wasn't like I saw her, but it was in that vibration. Is inside of me, that kind of that weird rumble. And my mother, again, it wasn't in English either, but I sensed it was in English, but it was not yet, not yet. 2 times. That's it. In this really low vibration. Not yet, not yet. And on the second not yet, bam, I am in pitch black terror. I mean, a kind of indescribable terror, like the word, it's not even a nightmare. It's beyond, it was ghoulish how terrifying I was. And it was like I just pushed off of the bottom of a deep black lake, and I went, and I caught air. Like I gasped for air, but I'm in this pitch black, and I felt like I was just in this cocoon of black. And all I could remember was screaming. And I screamed was warrior scream. I screamed for my wife, Connie, 3 times. I was like, find me, Connie. I was screaming loud, and I could hear myself scream, but it was like a warrior scream 3 times, and then pitch black. Nothing after that. Then I woke up in the ICU and doctors around me, and my wife had come to me shortly that day, and they brought me out of this sedation. And all I recall that day, and it was probably right around the evening, I guess, was that she whispered into my ear, "You had a widowmaker heart attack, and you're alive." And I had tubes in my throat, and apparently I was panicky, and she said, "No, put him right back," So they put me back in this sedation, and they were very concerned that I would have a major brain injury. So they put me in sort of a cold state. They cooled me off my brain. They wanted my brain to not swell, and they didn't know if I'd hit my head. They didn't know anything about anything yet. They knew I had this blood clot, but they were very concerned that my brain would be swelling. And so that's where I ended up in the hospital. And that's how the experience, though, came about a week later, as I'm describing it to these firemen. And so, it impacted me greatly. We left the firehouse that Monday, and to be honest with you, I still didn't understand what had just happened to me. I really didn't. I didn't know. I couldn't make anything of it, but the fact that they told me, "You would not know about this," but I was telling them what they already knew. And I didn't know how to grab that one. It was pretty big, and I was still worried about my brain. So I went home, and every time I shut my eyes, there it is. Going to sleep, there it was. Waking up, there it was. It began to bother me, And so, I was also worried about my brain to the point where sometimes I would look at my wife and I couldn't remember her name. So I was worried at first that something had happened to my head. Come find out that was natural. What I had gone through, your brain it had to kind of reroute itself and get it back to speed. Here I am. I just wrote a book. I mean, I'm fine, you know. But during the time, I was worried. And so we went back to my cardiologist about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks later for another checkup. And I had some things I had to do there, some tests. And I was worried. And he asked me if there's anything I needed to talk. I said, yeah, I got to tell you this. So I told him what I just explained. And he listened very intently. And I said, Doc, I'm worried. I said, that darkness and that scary nightmare, I don't know what to make of that. And he smiled. He goes, Kevin, he goes, you were very much alive when that happened. I go, what? He goes, the light part, that's you. But that darkness and you screaming and you fighting and you having a warrior moment, you were very much alive. And that's when I brought you back. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, you actually had a hold of one of my nurses. And we had to pull you off of a nurse in the cath lab. I literally, the poor woman, you know, I mean, going from purple and not looking so good to here I am grabbing a hold of this nurse and I'm screaming. Come find out my son worked at the ER that they brought me to. He wasn't there that day, but they told my son that. And I went home and I talked to my son about it. He goes, Dad, you don't know. When they brought you in, they all knew you were gone. So when my son went to work the next day, he said, that was your dad? Yeah. And they said, he was gone like that. And my son was just kind of getting caught up. And he explained to my son that, oh yeah, he brought him in. He was code blue. He was gone. And so they took me straight to the cath lab, and everybody knew that I was gone. And then out of nowhere, they start hearing me screaming, like tops of my lungs screaming through the hallway. You could hear me screaming 3 times, and then nothing. It went totally silent, and they were like, what just happened? And the nurse came out of the cath lab who had assisted, and she was shook. And so he said, you were very much alive. And a year later, I met that same nurse, and she said I scared her out of 10 years of her life. And I was like, I'm sorry. So that's the experience. And
excuse me.
that's about all I got.
Oh, you got me there. Like I know it's not funny to laugh, but it sounds funny.
Some of it's hilarious.
After,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. After.
Holy
I mean,
Kevin.
I tell you that there is some humor here. I mean, I've gone through everything. We lost everything. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This whole experience, it was a miracle at its own. But you know, starting the day off, not saying I love you to my wife, and leaving each other like we've left each other thousands of times, and we always say I love you. And so here I am, you know, making her a widow, right? And we were glad to walk out of there. Here's a funny story, just to lighten the moment for you. I got this bra on, okay? And that's been the moment of contention between the two of us, because it's a bra. I said, the only thing it's missing is the little tiny butterfly in the front, but I know it's a bra. And so I'm hard of hearing, all right? And I from a whole nother job that I did before, I won't get too much into that, but it was Sunday, and I wanted to kind of rebuild Valentine's Day. So I wanted to make food, which is what I had gone to the store. I had steaks and everything ready to make, and never got to make them, but I wanted to do something. So we ended up going to the grocery store just to get out of the house. And my wife is treating me like I'm a toddler for sure. And she does that. And so we go to the grocery store, and she's one of them people that's got to wipe off the cart and clean it to hitherto. And I'm like, okay. She tells me, go stand by the strawberries and don't move. I'm like, okay. So I've got a shirt on like this with no undershirt and this bra on underneath. And I'm standing there by the strawberries like a good little boy. And people around me are looking at me like really crazy. They're looking at me like surprised, and they got these weird expressions on their face. And I was in a business before where I know if you're keying on me or not, just to give you that. I'm like, I know you're looking at me. And several people like, looking at me with all these crazy expressions. And I'm trying to figure that out. But I'm standing there, and here comes my wife with the cart, and her eyes get like huge. And she goes, Kevin, it's going off. And I'm like, what? She goes, it's going off. And she points to the battery. And the battery is saying, I'm hard of hearing, and especially in a loud place like a grocery store where people are on the, it's saying, step away from the patient, stand clear, step away from the patient, stand clear. And I don't hear it because I can't hear any of that. And I'm like, what? She goes, it's going off. It's going off. And so my wife, right in the middle of everybody and God, starts taking my shirt off. And here's a 60-year-old man standing there with a bra on. And she's trying to take this thing off because she's afraid it's gonna kick me like a mule if it goes off. And I couldn't remember. No, we probably should have listened a little better, but I couldn't remember quite how to stop it. Right, and so they're pushing buttons and pushing buttons. Finally, the thing stops, but this thing's gonna kick me right in the chest, and everybody's looking at me like, "Stand clear of the patient." And I'm like, "What is going on?" So yeah, that
Kevin,
was
my cheeks hurt.
To this day, she doesn't call it a bra, but it was a bra. I'm telling you what, I know a bra, and I had to wear one for 90 days, and it wasn't my favorite thing to do. So there you go.
I bet it wasn't. I'm sure it's not very many women don't feel it's their favorite thing to do either, to be honest. Seriously. Oh my goodness. Wow, you had me going there. I literally, my cheeks are hurting, my abs are hurting. Oh, so Kevin, you were clinically dead.
Yep, I was gone.
And yet you were able to describe in detail and verification, confirmation.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm called the widowmaker dude here in Gilbert.
I bet you are.
Yeah, a week after this, we went to the police department. I insisted on meeting everybody. And after this experience, I was still suspicious, all right, of what had happened to me. I didn't know what was going on. So they told me that day that the police officers were there doing CPR on me. And I went, okay, where are they and how can I find them? And the assistant chief felt he got the lieutenant on the phone from the police department and said, hey, you'll never guess who we got standing right here. And they're like, yeah, the widowmaker guy, man. And can we make an arrangement? He wants to meet the two officers. And so he said, hold on a minute. He goes, how's next Monday at 5:00 in the morning? And I'm like, sure. I've been in a bunch of briefings. So I'm like, yeah. So this lieutenant from the police department had set up that my wife and I were going to meet, and my wife, bless her heart, gets up and we drive over there at 5:00 in the morning for a briefing. And we meet the lieutenant who's outside waiting for us. And we walk into the briefing, and there's another sergeant and there's somebody who's given the briefing. And the lieutenant walks in, and everybody stops. And I'm standing there with my wife, and they're just looking at me. And he says, raise your hand if you've ever done CPR. The whole room raises their hand. He says, all right, leave your hand up if it worked. Everybody drops their hands, the whole room. And I'm standing in front of this line of desks, and I could see 2 desk rows back. These 2 officers are kind of going, psh, 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 talking to each other and looking at me and talking to each other and looking at me. And like I say, I can tell you when a police officer's key, I've thrown thousands of police officers on the ground just to give you a little insight on the past life there. But I know when they're keying on me, and I'm like, you two, just like that. And they looked up with their eyes, and I went, thank you. Oh. And they couldn't believe it. It was glorious. They were like, what? So if you've ever, tell you what, if you've ever done CPR on somebody, and I have, you don't ever forget it. And here I'm standing there alive. They couldn't believe it. Right? So I said, well, I said, before you tell me anything, I'm going to tell you what I know. And I went on to explain to them what I explained to the fire department. And they're looking at me like, what? Are you kidding me? And I explained where they were parked at. And they were just like, they were shocked. They couldn't believe it. And I went on to explain the paper and the drill and the whole bit, how what the paper was and how they told me they had an IO, but I told them about the paper, and they couldn't believe it. And so, believe it or not, that experience was the part of the cool out of that was that I met somebody there who had a cardiac arrest also, that was on the SWAT team, but he could no longer be on the SWAT team. But he asked me if I would be willing to write a letter to the mayor about it, because they were trying to get AEDs in each of the, you know what an AED is? It's the automatic thing they put on you.
Yeah.
You see them in the grocery stores and whatnot. Well, they were trying to get him and put it in every one of the police cars. And a year later, my letter that I wrote to the mayor was read before the city council. And apparently they pushed the button and everybody got AEDs in their car. And so, yeah, I can't say I was responsible for it, but I was integral in helping. And that's a blessing, but and they actually used one a couple weeks after that. A little boy had shocked himself, and before the fire department even got there, the police officer was in the neighborhood with an AED and shocked the kid right back. And so, that's what happens to
This story is moving, so moving. It's, they really should make a movie of this, because there's some funny stuff. I can only imagine what they do to you on the hockey rink now. Up here in
Well, they call
Canada,
me
I think
Lazarus. Now
oh,
they call me
yeah.
Lazarus.
See, up here in Canada, we call it shinny hockey when a bunch of buddies get together and play hockey,
Well, there you go.
right? But
Yeah.
anyways, I've got a lot of questions, but this one
Ask away.
question I would love to know. Why do you believe you had to have this experience, or why did it happen to you?
Boy,
I know
that's a
it's a deep
question.
one, but
Yeah.
honestly, what came of it is how I like to think, and then maybe it takes you back a bit and you go, "Oh, this changed," or, you know?
Well, that's is probably the crux of why I actually wrote it down and put it in a book. About 3 weeks or so after my cardiac arrest, I had been all over the news, in newspapers, online. There's all kinds of writings about it. And I get a phone call at my house. And I didn't recognize the number. It was from New York. And I'm like, hello? And she said, is this Kevin? And I said, yeah. And she goes, my name's Anna Marie. And I said, oh, hi, Anna. And she goes, I'm going to write your book. I went, oh, I didn't know I was writing a book. She goes, no, I want to meet you. And come find out, she was a ghostwriter, very famous ghostwriter, but they don't tell you who they've written for. That's how that works. But she hinted and alluded to who she had written for, and she'd been on New York Times bestseller list dozens of times. And I was like, really? And so she flew to me, and we sat for a better part of 4 hours in my favorite coffee house. And I just told her my story about my previous life, and just told her who I was and told her what happened here. And she says, Kevin, this has to be told. And I said, okay. So she agreed that she would. I said, well, you want to help? I've been published before, but in magazines and different writings from previous world. I had no idea how to write a book. So I'm like, she says, what we're going to do is we're going to bookend your story, meaning we're going to start here, and then we're going to have the other end of it like a bookend. And I'm like, okay, I'm not ready for that. And I just wasn't ready. I had still a lot of things that I had to work through physically, and I wasn't sure emotionally where I was at. Mentally, I wasn't sure of anything. I said, I'll be honest with you, I'm not real sure where I'm at yet. So she goes, no, just write. Whatever happens to you, write it down. Keep a journal. Talk to me about it, and we'll just kind of collaborate. And I said, okay. So I wasn't ready to really share this story or to even know what the story was, because I was just right smack dab in the middle of the beginning. And I didn't realize I did go back to play hockey. It was my goal. 91 days, 90 days, the vest came off. On the 91st day, I got new hockey tape, and I'm out there, and I mean it. That was just my goal. And during the process of that 90 days, I kind of mentally went into a dark hole. I was very uncertain what my life was going to turn into. I wasn't sure about my heart, wasn't sure about my head. I was very, very unsure. Everything had changed immediately. It went from here to there now. And so, I mean, all of a sudden here I went from this person who'd been rock and ice climbing when I was young to playing hockey, boxing, 5th degree black belt, throwing law enforcement on the ground. I've trained Navy SEALs. And I mean, I just have gone this whole gambit to being a very ill person at one point. And so I wasn't sure where I was at. Went back and played hockey, and I continued to play hockey for, 3 months or so. But something about that CPR that they gave me, it hurt me somewhere. And what happened was a rib or something in my back was sawing on a nerve that eventually shut my legs off completely. Yeah, it's like it's sciatica. People have had that where it goes down your legs, times about 100. It was shearing pain, and my legs were numb, but it was shearing nerve pain inside my bones. It was so awful. It had nothing to do with my heart. I had my heart issues I was dealing with, but this hip thing was really bad. And it got worse and worse and worse and worse. Eventually, I couldn't even lift my legs up. And my wife would have to pull my legs out of socket because I was standing on raw nerves. And all my hockey butt and all that muscle went away. I went from 225 pounds, 6'3", to 170. And I lost all my legs. And so here I found myself. I sold my car. I couldn't drive. I couldn't work. And we had burned through a bunch of our money. And so here I am, disabled. I couldn't believe it. Here I had just been playing hockey, and now I'm disabled. We've lived in a 2-story home, and I had a walker upstairs and a walker downstairs and a cane, and my wife had to push me up the stairs, and I'm using a cane, and I'm doing like push-ups just to get up the stairs. And going down the stairs was a little easier, but getting up the stairs was impossible. And, my wife had never really had to work. And we're slowly realizing the financial situation that's coming down the pike. It just doesn't stop because you're not feeling good. And we burned through all of our money now. And so she went and picked up a job driving groceries around, and that's just not enough to make the bills. We were on a lifestyle of here, and we were living on this budget. And I wasn't working. I tried to sit in open houses. She would drive around and put the signs out for me, but I couldn't walk. So I would have to find an open house where it was furnished so I could sit on a chair. And it just, then it wasn't sure how my heart was going to behave. All that just kind of collapsed on top of us. And so here I am right around August, September, completely disabled. And life just fell apart right there. And here I am thinking, what was this? Everybody's, it was a miracle. A miracle, I tell you. And I'm like, yeah, well, how about the miracle I'm living in right now? This ain't no miracle. What I was living in was the antithesis of a miracle. It was awful. And the whole time I kept in my mind, it's never left me, but this light, this peaceful place that I had been in. And here life started to go down and down and down and down and down. And this light never left, this peaceful place. And I started to yearn for that peaceful place again. And my mind started to let myself wander towards that yearning. And I began to feel a little shameful that I wanted to go back to that place again. And so after all this miracle, And everybody was so profoundly impressed and wow, and you did it, yay. Inside of me, my life's condition it punched me right in the face. And so the miracle on the exterior was complete devastation on the inside. I'd lost my ability to walk. My physicality completely left me, which is what I've lived my whole life as a very physical man. Mentally, I'm a teacher and I'm a speaker and I'm a mentor. I've helped countless people. When I had my martial arts school, hundreds and hundreds of students that I helped, and I mentored them with leadership and things of that nature. And here I am wishing, shamefully so, that I was back in that piece. And I couldn't get it out of my head. And it was there. My hips were so bad. The searing pain, and my poor wife had to push me to the stairs, and then she'd have to pull my legs, and I would scream in pain when they would pop, and then it was awful. And I went to the doctor and found out that I had just such bad arthritis. Both of my hip joints were completely fried. Now that all that muscle was gone, I was just in that bad physical place. And so my insurance company, required me to go get these shots. Oh, you got to get shots. And that's what we got to do first. So I had to go through 3 series of shots that were each 6 weeks apart. So that delayed everything. And the doctors all said, you need new hips, man. You need new hips, period. End of the story. You need new hips. You got nothing left. But we're going to give you shots until the insurance company gives you permission. And I'm like, ugh. So I'm completely disabled, got the tag for the wheelchair guy in the mirror and everything. It was awful. And I just couldn't take it anymore. I got to the part where the pain was so bad and we were devastated financially. We started to sell off stuff. I had friends helping with money, but that's the limit. And so here I am. It is the first part of February, and we're dead broke. And my wife was driving, and she would drive all day, 8-10 hours. But she would come home for a break. I would be upstairs in bed. And on a Saturday, she set me up upstairs. She went off and drove in the morning, and then I was in bed, but then I got up and she said, okay. And she made me a sandwich, some potato chips, and 3 cookies. And she goes, here. And she goes, I'll be back. Don't go downstairs. Just stay in bed. I'll be back. Check on you. I'm like, okay. For some reason, I was in a bad place anyway. And I'd eaten my lunch and had the cookies and everything. And I wanted more cookies. And so me and the 80-pound poodle, I decided I'm going to go downstairs. I had a plan. I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to get some cookies and have a few cookies, and I'm going to take a nap downstairs and I'm going to rejuvenate, and then I'm going to come back up. I know I can do this. So I do that, and I wake up from my nap. My poodle, I got a big dog. He's a big standard poodle, and he's 80 pounds, and he's all knucklehead, and he's everywhere I go. And so I take my walker over to the bottom of the stairs with my cane on it, and I start up the stairs. We have a big set of stairs, then a stoop, and then another set of stairs to the top of the house. And I make it up the first set of stairs, get to the stoop. I'm gassed, tired by now, because it's literally just everything I can do just to get up the stairs. I'm tired and my hips are screaming and I'm regretting what I just did. And I got halfway up the next stairs and I fell. Yeah, I fell down, and I didn't go all the way down the stairs. I was upside down on the stairs, but my legs were kind of buried underneath me in the worst position. And I'm on my shoulder, which is an implant. And that thing is killing me from all the push-ups I'm having to do. I dropped my cane. I got no way. I can't move. And I'm upside down, sort of, on these stairs, about halfway from the top to the bottom. And I'm on my hips, and they're just pulling out of socket, and screaming pain. And I'm in this position on my arm, so I can't get off of that, and I can't reach anything with my other arm. I'm literally I'm stuck. But I'm in this just writhing pain. And I feel my heart start to beat real hard I could hear it in my chest starting to beat. And I'm thinking, I'm going to have a cardiac right here on my stairs. I'm sure of it. And at the time, I was still under this crazy medicine that they took me off later, but it was bad. And I don't know how long I was there, but it seemed like an eternity, but it could have been 10, 15, 20 minutes. I don't remember. But I was stuck. And my dog was sitting at the top of the stairs looking at me like, you dummy, right? You know, he was just standing there looking at me. He's laying there looking at me like, what are you doing? And I was writhing around, and I just decided I'm going to just push myself. And I literally threw myself down the stairs. And I got blood thinners, and I'm not supposed to bang my head. And I just kaboom up against the wall, cracked my head up against the wall. But I was laying there and I'm bawling and I'm cussing and I'm mad. I am mad. I'm cussing God. I'm cussing everything. I'm just out loud screaming mad, just cussing. And I'm bawling and I'm in pain. I'm mad. I'm angry. I want to go back there. I'd been thinking about this a long time now. I wanted to go back. I wanted back in that light again. And that's the peril of a near-death experience where it's so wonderful. Because I wanted to go exactly back there now. And I had determined, and I had felt so much shame that I got past the shame now. Now I'm apologizing out loud to my wife, Connie. She's not there, but I'm apologizing, but I'm going to go hang myself. Yeah, I'm done. Oh. Today's the day. So I found the strength and I belly crawled up the stairs. I didn't try standing because my legs wouldn't work anyway. I just belly crawled up the stairs and I'm mad and I'm cussing and I'm crying, awful crying. I'm just crying and I'm mad and I'm cussing and I get to the top. I'm too tired now. I can't even get into my walker. So I just crawl into the bed and I crawl into the bed. And I remember vividly, I'm yelling at the tops of my lungs, you promised me. You promised me. You promised me. I repent. You promised me that you wouldn't give me too much. You wouldn't give me too much. Yeah. I was mad at God. And you promised me. I remember it. I was vehemently just out and out. You promised me, and I'm ready to kill myself. I'm there. Yeah. My phone rang. Right then, after I was screaming at God, you promised me, I repent, I repent, I repent. My phone rang. I look at the screen, and it's a client of mine. I'd sold this kid a house, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years earlier. I don't even remember when it was. He's on the other line. I'm like, hey. He goes, what's up, man? Real enthusiastic. And I'm like, unbelievable. That's all I could say was unbelievable. Like, you'll never believe it. He goes, dude, I need you to sell my house. I hadn't sold a house in a year. 1 year. I was out of real estate. The market was the worst our market had ever seen. Our interest rates were pushing 8%. It was god awful for a healthy real estate agent, let alone for one that was like in my condition. And here this kid's calling me to tell me he wants me to sell his house. And I just sold him one. I'm like, it's like, dude, you got no equity. I'm certain of it. Right? Yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I'm getting married. I go, and I said her name. And he goes, yeah. I go, what? He goes, dude, I'm building a house. We're out here in Florence. It was far away. He goes, I need to sell my house so we can close. Can you do it? I'm like, I'll call you back. I'm wiping my face off. I'm literally seconds away. I had decided. I had said my apologies to everybody, and I'm finished with this whole thing. My phone rings right in the middle of it. I get on the computer that's next to me, my laptop, and I look him up, and sure enough, this kid's got about 80 grand available in this house because he put a big down payment down.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a little bit of equity because when I sold it to him, it was when all the Californians were coming here paying more for the money for the house. So he had money in it. And I'm like, huh. I called him up and I said, I think we can do this. When do you want to start? He goes, now. I literally hadn't sold a house in a year. And I out of nowhere, I get his call. Right. Miracles happen every day. And I said, okay. And I was online and I sent him the papers. We did the listing. Monday, my wife has to drive me over to his house. I meet his fiance for the photographer and the sign. I'm in a walker. I can barely walk. I'm miserable, pain, and I don't take pain medicine. I would never touch pain medicine, ever. I wouldn't touch it. And it's just, I knew better. And so I was having a hard time. I'm in this walker, got the sign going, got the photographer there, put the house on the market. We had this showing all week. We got one showing on Saturday. I get a call from this agent wanting to know if she can send a contract. And I'm like, sure. They were from California. Come to find out, they had a neighbor that saw the house went on the market, and they were friends with this person from California. So the person from California wanted to live close to the neighbor, and they bought the house almost sight unseen. They showed up, cash buyer. We closed escrow like 2 weeks, and it was a $600,000 house. And I got a pretty decent paycheck out of that, out of nowhere. Out of nowhere.
I don't know if that was out of nowhere. Someone was listening to you.
I'm telling you. So the crazy part was right after we closed escrow, 3 days later, I get a call from the orthopedic surgeon saying, we just got permission. We need to set a date for your hips. And I'm like, really? And I just got a paycheck. I'm going to need help because I have 2 hips that are going to be replaced, one at a time. So the first hip got done, no problems. I walked out of there. Second hip got done June 7th. I walked out of there. I'm ready to go buy a hockey stick. I am living life. I'm telling you. And once again, faith, I'd lost it all. I'd lost all the faith, and I was mad. And I was once again reminded that all I got to do is pay attention and listen a little bit closer, and the miracles are right there. So I have to listen. So I didn't understand what that meant because a month later, after my second hip, I wake up with dry heaves. Terrible. And I don't get sick, but I had the dry heaves bad, like I was wanting to vomit up a baseball. Guess what? My stents were now blocked again. Yeah, the second hip surgery gave me a complete blockage in that artery. Once again, the artery, the same artery 1 year earlier that killed me. I said, honey, I think we need to go to the hospital. I don't feel good. And so we go to the hospital. They start doing tests on me, and they said, we're going to do some more tests on you. I spent the morning in the ER doing tests on me. We're admitting you. The next morning at 7:00, they're inside of my heart with a catheter trying to figure out what it is. And they found a blood clot that had completely clotted my stents with the consistency of a Tootsie Roll. A hard piece of candy was inside of my stents, and it ain't going anywhere. She said, it'll be a half an hour. They're just double checking half an hour. Come find out, it turned into a 6-hour procedure. Her trying to poke that thing out. Wouldn't budge. I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. Serious trouble. That artery is not going in. They got to put me to a specialist. They can't fix it. I said, why am I not dead? And he said, Kevin, you have an extremely healthy heart. The part of my heart that didn't get killed off because of the dead artery, I've lost now about, the number's hard to determine, between 35 and 38% of that part of my heart is dead. It's fried chicken. I said, why am I not dead? And they said, because your heart has a memory. and it remembered it was healthy, and I grew what are called collateral artery or collateral veins or whatever they call it. So I have veins that grew off of the dead part that's now feeding the remaining part of that heart, where that artery is no longer doing it. It grew arteries, and it's now feeding that part of my heart. Yeah. But the money that I earned from that house sale sufficed us long enough to get through the dangerous part of all this. We ended up losing everything still, but it helped me through that part to survive it. And yeah, so here I am. I'll fast forward for you real quickly, and I know you've got questions. In May of 2024, I had been talking to Anna Marie all this time, the author. And I'm like, Anna, I think I'm ready. I was feeling good. I was exercising because I was told to exercise, and I'm feeling better and vibrant. Our financial situation still is pretty sticky. Not good. We've been evicted. We sold everything, wedding rings and all. Everything was gone, but I was alive and I still had Connie, and we had help. So I called her and I said, I think I'm ready to start writing. I might be at the end of the bookend. And she goes, oh, this was Friday. This was on a Zoom call. She lived in Idaho, and her husband had a stroke, so she was taking care of him too. She's in her 70s. And we talked, and she said, okay. So she would write the book with a stenographer, and I would tell my story, and the stenographer would type. She would take it and then do what she does. She says, I got to run. I got an appointment, but let's get back together Tuesday at noon and we'll start. I'm like, cool. She goes, get your notes together because it's going to be a long time. Said it'll be 3 or 4 hours of this person typing. I'm okay. Let's go. Tuesday at noon, I'm ready. I got my notes out. I'm ready. And here she comes on the Zoom call, and I said, hey, you ready to go? And she had a very sad face. And I said, what's the matter? She goes, I got bad news. I go, what do you mean bad news? She goes, I can't commit to writing your book. I go, oh, Anna, what? She goes, I can't commit, Kevin. I just can't commit. I go, what's the matter? She goes, I'm going to die. I said, Anna, we're all going to die. She goes, no, I'm going to die in a month. They've given me 1 month. I went, what? The appointment she had to go to was her doctor's appointment, and the doctor said that she had cancer completely throughout her entire body. And Anna was dead 3 weeks later. Go figure. And I'm once again going, God, what is this? What is this roller coaster ride of human condition that is just punching me in the face, and I don't understand why the miracle in all of this. It just was never ending. It didn't stop. It's just up and down and up and down and up and down. It was crazy. Didn't understand it. I still had faith, though, and I rejoiced. And I told her, I said, Anna, I'm going to rejoice. She goes, we are. We rejoice too. I said, I'm going to rejoice. God is good all the time. I know that. I have faith in that. I'm going to rejoice. Whatever happens, I'm going to rejoice. I promise. Yeah. And she died, and I still rejoiced. That life is finite. It's very finite. And for the people that are listening to this, it is finite. And if you're searching, listen closer. Because when you listen, the answers are there. And I did not understand why all this darkness when I had seen all this light. All right.
What do you think that was for?
Pardon me?
What do you think the darkness was for?
People ask me all the time, if I believe in God. I go, I absolutely do. I'm a very scientific-minded person, by the way. I'm infatuated with astronomy. I'm infatuated with quantum mechanics and quantum physics, infatuated with it to the part where in college, I was a geology major, but I did an astrophysics class where I learned about the physics of space. and our universe at the time. That was a long time ago. And my Professor Pogue, opened my brain to quantum physics to the level where our math brains are not even remotely possible to comprehend the amazing features of what we don't know about space and about how light is. What is light and what is our body? Light and vibration is what makes up the entire universe. Light, here we go. Light and vibration. And I experienced both in the most profound way. So when I'm starting to, my math brain and my science brain starts to come together with this quantum mechanics of how light can be. We say, oh, the speed of light. Light doesn't have speed. Light just is. It doesn't go anywhere. It just is. Until you try to measure it, then there is a speed to it. But that's the mechanics of quantum physics. So you ask me, what is this darkness and lightness? And I simply say to people when they ask me, well, if you believe God created the universe, of which I do, because I believe strongly in the laws of causality. If I say to this handkerchief right here, I want you to move, it doesn't move unless I move it. So I have to cause it to happen. So the laws of causality means that nothing happens accidentally. It doesn't just occur. Gravity didn't just appear one day. The Big Bang just didn't happen because what is the something that created the action? So where every action there is that opposite reaction, there is a causality to that. What causes it? What can cause such a quantum amount of space? And how does that add up? Why is it that gravity warps when it goes? What causes that? What is that? What is that causes that? What is it? You have to answer the question, what is it, before you can understand it. And that's where the quantum part of physics and quantum mechanics really takes my brain and creates my spirituality. There is no possible way. If you understand the pure exponential math of it all. And if a person believes in coincidence, okay, but that's no coincidence. The exponential nature of what could possibly, for a protein to show up out of nowhere, exponentially, the mathematics don't even occur that could measure that exponential synchronicity. It's impossible. So I'm a logic, very scientifically minded man. And when I see the quantum depth of what our universe is, and I say, there's a plan there. It's not chaotic. It's actually, they found that it's not chaotic. It's actually a very designed thing. It's just we didn't have the math brain to understand it until somebody actually broke the math. One day they said, well, there's an anomaly right there that nobody can explain, but I can do it with math. And they went, really? For years and years and years, scientists just took that part out and they didn't want to show people because they couldn't understand. It didn't math with them. All of a sudden, they said, well, we have to talk about that. And here's the math equation that math's fine for that equation. And the guy did the mathematical equation and said, there it is. So why the depth of light and dark? And here's what I say to people. When they ask me, if God created everything, obviously, he created pain and suffering and all the bad and evil, correct? If God is in charge of everything, God created that too, didn't he? And I say to them, I said, have you ever been in a dark, dark, dark room with no light in it at all, just pitch black? I've been in that darkness. I can tell you what it feels like. And I explained to them, I know what that darkness felt like. Complete darkness. If there is a peep of light, you'd see it. Correct? If you're in a dark, dark room and there is just a peep of light, you would catch it and you would look at it and you would gravitate to it. So the reason I say that is that you cannot measure darkness. There's no mathematical measurement tool that we have that can measure darkness other than simply the lack of its light. So like light is pure in the measurement form. Darkness has no measurement. It's just simply the absence of light is what we can measure.
Mhm.
So when we measure the depths of the universe, we're not measuring its darkness. We're just measuring the absence of its light. That's how we know where things are at. So if you're in the darkest place in your life, dark, whatever it is. I was in a place where I was so dark. What did I do? I reached out. Light saved me. So God didn't create the darkness. I was just in it. He didn't
You
create it.
created the darkness.
I created it.
Mhm.
I created it. It wasn't until I said, show me your light again. Boink. See that? That's light again. We cannot measure cold. We don't measure cold. We can only measure the lack of heat. We know that absolute zero is minus 242 degrees Kelvin. Okay?
Oh.
But we
Mhm.
also know now that there's something colder than that because of the darkness that we figured out in space. But we still measure it against heat, which is the energy, the vibration. That's what creates heat, is vibration. So our
Mhm.
body, the photon that's in our body, is light and vibration. All right? And it's universal. It doesn't stop, not here on Earth, not anywhere, as far as we can possibly even reach. The Hubble Space Lab that took the last photo possible, we thought we knew everything we needed to know about the distance of the Earth and how fast of the universe and how fast it's moving. No. It took a picture of something that made no sense. And all of a sudden they're going, what? Yeah, on its last drip of energy from its solar panels, it took a photo deep into space of an area that didn't exist. That they're like, that's impossible. But it took a photo of it in the way that it took, and they're like, explain that. Well, they didn't want to explain that for a long time because it didn't math up to what everybody thought. All the scientists and all they're out there, oh, we got it all figured out. The Big Bang is what, no. What about that? Ask any quantum physicist, does God exist? And they're going to go, yep. Fact is, it takes a whole lot more faith, a lot of faith, to be an atheist. When you believe that there is no such thing as God, you have to have such incredible faith that you have to deny all of the laws that we know are true. The laws of causality, you got to deny that that's a fact. You cannot be an atheist and still believe that. Because if you say God didn't do anything, well, who did? Then if you say, well, it's not God, then you have to have a lot of faith beyond believing in God that something who created that. You have to completely deny what the laws that we have actually proven across the many, there's more than one of them, the universes that are out there. We already know that. We've measured it. We've mathematically defined it, and we know it's there because we've been able to do the math. For you to just deny that, I'm sorry, but you just, okay. Go ahead. If it makes you feel better. If it answers the questions easier, try harder, is what I say.
Some people just don't want to go that route.
And
they
that's
just
okay.
don't. And it is okay.
Yep. So I told
Kevin,
you in the beginning in a conversation that I've had many people deny my story and give me those negative comments, right? And I know you have a question, but I say to them, I encourage you to keep investing. Whatever energy you have, whether it's negative or positive, I still encourage you to keep investing into your question. Because I truly believe once you listen and once it shows up, you'll answer your own questions. So there you go.
beautiful story. I was in darkness in my NDE, complete darkness. I didn't feel anything fearful, nothing. But I did see moving in the dark. I seen light coming towards me, or maybe I was going towards it. I couldn't really tell. And it was Jesus. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say I didn't have a lot of faith before. That's when it started kicking in a whole lot more. I tell you that. And then when I finally, this was it. This was where my faith is like complete. Well, it's been like this for a while, but this was the nail on the head, is when I was beside my mother while she was dying.
Mm.
And I was praying and I was asking God just only for emotional stability. I was asking him to please give me the gift of understanding, because that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to have my mom feel like she had to hold me up while she was journeying, while her journey was ending, right? And I'm telling you, if you don't believe, because what I felt for 10 days straight was like someone was holding me up. And it's no word of a lie. It came, I can't, I believe. And so your story, number one, it's verifiable. So people can say what they'd like. But I want to step back just again, and in one sentence, why do you believe this experience happened to you?
My purpose is to share my faith so that you'll have hope.
That's beautiful. Did you somewhere along the line then, Kevin, lose that faith?
I had.
Or maybe just ignored the faith?
Good question. Prior to that very pivotal and profound moment, and afterwards, it wasn't like my condition changed any. Okay. But the falling on the stairs, that part where God literally showed himself to me.
Yeah.
Just, I needed it to be loud and clear in front of me, because I had so much more to give. And I have so much to share yet that will be helpful, I hope. And it has. It's helped a lot of people. Even the 0.001% of the people that have had a negative comment, I know, because I talked to them. I'm still putting a little bit of it into their thought. And so that is still my purpose. But my purpose has been to share what that faith created was hope. All right. And I started to rejoice in all the darknesses, because without darkness, I would never have noticed the light. I really wouldn't. It's like, if I asked you, if you're in a dark room and you see that little spot of light, you notice it, right? And to me, that's where my faith has taken me. From that moment before, where I was questioning the miracle, I was questioning the whole understanding this. What is this? Why are you doing this to me? If it was a miracle, why are you doing? I couldn't see the light in the truest form. I had been shown the light. I was in it. I was literally given that gift of that experience. It's in me still to this day. Never left. But I made it all the way up to this pity party that I was having about my human condition and everything that was happening to me. Woe is me, that I completely separated myself out from what I already knew. And it wasn't until that moment when I was there, I had decided, I had given up, and I had shut my eyes completely to any light that was out there. I was done. I was in complete darkness once again. That emotion that I was experiencing was as dark as I've ever been. Way dark. And it wasn't, all of a sudden the phone rings. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Bingo. Hello. I hung up the phone and I just praised God. For once again giving me I'm ignorant, and how do you say it? I'm just this weak person that all of a sudden there it is again. Thank you. So it's like God saying to me, wake it up. Do you not get what I just did for you? Here I am in this position again. So he gave it to me again. Hey. All right. And then when I got the phone call with Anna, hey, wake it up. I'm telling you, that was a dark, dark moment. So in that darkness, all of a sudden I rejoice. Now I'm looking in the light again, and that's my purpose. For the people that are in this darkness, it is so dark. Rejoice in the fact that if you simply rejoice, and I have faith, I know that I'm here for a reason. I'm just simply going to turn the light on and look at the light, and guess what? Here comes your purpose. Here comes your purpose. You know, there's so many times we can reflect on other people's devastation and we say, oh, look at the miracle that person went through. Wow. But then we're in our own miracles all the time. But we don't see it because we refuse to turn on the light and look at the light side of it. Instead, we just agree to sit in the dark. We just go sit in the dark and call it evil, call it God's fault, but it isn't. We just turn on the light switch, and guess what? It's right there. Yeah. And that's what my purpose has been, and that's why I can say I rejoice in all the stuff. All right, all the stuff. Bad, good, indifferent. I rejoice in everything because I see the purpose in all of it now. I recognize that everything that is occurring, whether it's the political structure, the wars, the famine, all the things that are negative, I simply say it's there for us to dwell in, or for us to see that there's still light in this world, and it's how we respond and react to these negatives or these blacknesses in our heart. Everybody has it. It's a human condition. I write about it. It's the human condition. You ask anybody who's lost their child. It ain't supposed to happen that way. It's not supposed to happen that way. Never are you supposed to lose your child. It's supposed to be the other way around. Just like you with your mother at her deathbed. I was there at my mother's deathbed. Mm-hmm. And part of the book is not yet, because my mother said it to me. But the other half is tomorrow has just begun. Yeah. That was the song that I wrote for my mother. She was Alzheimer's. She had lost her mind. All right. But one day I would go visit her every morning for breakfast. She lived a mile away. And one morning she showed up all disheveled. Normally she was pretty well put together, but she's all disheveled in her nightgown and her robe and her slippers, and her hair's all in a mess. And I'm like, Mom, did you forget today started? She goes, who cares? She said, who cares? Tomorrow has just begun. And I went, that's it. That's the name of the song, because it'd been prattling around in my brain. So here I am. I've written this song. Now I've got a purpose behind this song. I wrote it, and I kept rewriting it and replaying it, re-recording it. I finally had a kind of a sketch of it. And now my mom's dying. She's dying. It's that slow death, where you pray for mercy and just take her, please, now. I know how you feel. I've been there with my father too, but with my mother, I'm like, please take her. Dear God, just take her. And it was on her last day on earth. I tell you, she was in hospice, and I said to the nurse, I go, is she gone? Because she was not there anymore. She was in her bed, but she wasn't there anymore. And I'd been holding this woman's hand all week long. And now I'm praying, dear God, just make her stop breathing. Okay. And I asked her, I go, is she gone? And the hospice nurse said to me something very profound. She said, her soul has left, but her body just hasn't caught up with it yet. Yeah. And I went, really? And I took my phone out and I placed it on her pillow right next to her head, and I pushed play. And the entire song, as I had recorded it, is still a sketch. And I hope everybody opens up my song, and you'll hear what that song meant to me. If you record it or if you download it, whatnot, I don't care about any money or thing, but it's how I felt. But I played this song next to her. She smiled. My mom smiled her last smile on earth, and she passed away about an hour later. And so how I could feel her soul just leaving. And I immediately felt this sense of joy. Even though my mother was dying, I felt this sense of joy from that one little smile she gave. But I just felt her spirit, and I just felt that joy from her.
Mhm.
And this was before any of this happened to me. Something touched me there. And, I can't, maybe that's what I'll ask her someday when I find her. But I'm
Oh,
like, Mom, right?
Kevin, I want to ask, and I think I already know the answer, but what did this experience strip away from your life that you thought mattered before?
Oh, toxic.
Mm,
I don't do toxic.
okay.
It is, I know it now when I see it, and I recognize it. I'll forgive it.
Mhm.
I'll forgive
Yeah.
it, but I will not participate in toxic. I'll love you through it if I need to, but if it's toxic, I know toxic. And toxic behavior on my part, toxic people and their toxic behavior on their part. Like I say, I'll love you through it and I'll forgive you, but toxic, I won't do toxic. And the reason is because that's up to Jesus
Mhm.
and the Holy Spirit to handle that. And I have an armor on me now that allows me to, instead of dwell in the toxic places, I shine light all over it, man. It's like a spray can. I just put the light all over it. That's exactly how I do it. And even if somebody's toxic to me, like I say, I've had some negative people. And I'm like, really? Wow, you are really sad. I mean, that must really be a bad place you're in. So instead of just, blowing them up, I love them. I just said, listen, I really, really appreciate that energy because it tells me that you are still in the search. And so I can forgive that. I really, truly can. I'm not going to wallow in it, and I'm not going to wallow in your problems, but that's what's really, really, really changed in me is I don't do toxic.
I've got 2 questions left for you,
Okay.
and this one just popped in my head. Has this experience changed how you show love?
Mm.
That kinda hits you in the feels, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, to me, the word love is sometimes misunderstood.
That's right.
I think sometimes the word love and the word unconditional love is somewhat skewed. Here's an example, and I'm going to give it to you straight. I love my brother. And if you're listening to me now, you can hear me now again. But I was on my way home from that doctor that day, that Monday, and everybody did not know how I was going to be. I was in a terrible place. And my brother's had his challenges in life, and he's had bad health. And I've always loved my brother, and I've always been there for him. And I've been very concerned about his life, and would try to be with him as often as possible, and everything. And what hurt in such a deep, deep way, which I never considered, and yet this is right about love. So we were on the way home from this doctor's office, and I had just been given some seriously bad news.
Yeah.
Was not a happy day. It was bad news. It was, Kevin, your life just changed. Your heart is dead on that side. And I mean, it ain't ever going to get better. There's nothing we can do about it. It is gone. You had a terrible event. Feel happy you're alive because you are in the one. He's the one who told me you're in the 1% club. I've been doing this a long time, he said, and you don't make it out of what you just made out of, alive and talking. So there was a miracle that just happened to you, but I want you to know your life just changed. That was a big punch in the face. And my wife and I were both there trying to make measurement of it and did not know what to take about that. We were getting in the car and she was driving and we didn't even make it out of the parking lot. And my brother calls on the phone and I could see it was him, and she pushes the button, but I'm in the other seat. And he's like, "Hey, what's going on?" I says, "Well, I just got left the cardiologist." And he said, "Oh." And he said, "What's going on there?" And I told him, I said, "Well, I have a severely damaged heart that's not getting any better. And we're all a little bit afraid right now." My expectation, I suppose yours would be that my brother would say, "Oh, Kevin, ha, ha, ha. Now you know how I feel." Uh, I'm like, "What? Ha, ha, ha. Now you know how I feel." Whoa. Connie looked at me and I looked at her, and my eyes, I couldn't believe it. And I said, "I'm so, hey, Marv, I got to run, man. I love you. I got to go." And I didn't know how to be. That's speechless. I didn't know how to be. And a month or so later, he was like nothing ever happened. And I'm like, he asked me about love. And I'm like, man, where'd that come from? Where'd that come from? You know, this is my brother, my only brother. My dad left us when I was 5 and he was 9, left us all afoot. And then until my mom remarried. But he was my brother, you know? And here I am in this incredibly vulnerable position. I don't know I don't know how long I'm going to live, actually. That was one of the stories. My doctor couldn't guarantee my lifespan. I said, "How long am I going to live?" He goes, "We're going to work on that," is what he said. He wouldn't give me an answer. But my brother literally made it about him. Yeah. So to me, love is oftentimes skewed on superficial. You know, what makes me feel good, I love. Sometimes what makes you feel terrible even proves love is deeper than that. You know?
I have a personal question, and you don't have to answer it.
Go ahead.
And I can take this part right out too. So if you don't want to answer, you just say so. But it just came to me, you know, you didn't have this relationship with your father, and he had left you. And I wonder if you were shown that deep, deep, deep love by the light in your NDE, for you to know how much you truly, truly are loved. Does that make sense to
It does.
you?
If that was a laser beam, it was right in there. So I'm very willing to answer that.
Okay.
We asked about love.
Yeah.
And I believe that most love between human beings is conditional. If you really come right down to it, between human beings, because of our own condition that we get wrapped up into and the way that we measure difficulties in life or wonderful in life, we measure it based on certain emotions or feelings or perceptions or sensories or things of that nature. So what gravitates me to you or you to me can grow and build into trust. And then what grows and builds into trust, into faith in each other. And then those are things that we have to grow together for true love to happen. Okay. And I looked at my mom and dad, my stepfather, who actually adopted my brother and I. He took the whole shooting match in and said, "Don't worry, Clara, I got you." And he took us on. Yeah. And I buried my father and I gave him full honors. He was a Marine and he was one of Uncle Sam's misguided children, let me tell you. And I never felt love for my father. My stepfather, the man adopted me, I never felt love the way that a person would expect to feel love from their father, to be sure. Okay. I never felt that biological attachment that you get when you birth a son or a daughter. Never felt it. Okay. But I had this deep respect for the man. Huge, deep respect for him, even though I hated his guts for many years in my life because of what he didn't portray to me as love. Okay. He didn't just say, "Oh, come here, son, I love you." No, it was, "You jerk, come here," Yeah. he didn't know how to express it in the biological attachment sort of way. Okay. I've since adopted my children. And so the two kids that I have were not mine, but I've adopted them and I love them both. And I've learned that lesson from my father on somewhat how to, quote, not be, to a degree. I'm not perfect at it, but that's the growth of it. So love is between two human beings, but it's highly conditional, I believe.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
We tolerate the other conditions oftentimes in order to grow. And it's just, the conditions are better than they are bad. So we tend to stay with the better than the bad. So that's why we can make it 50 years or whatnot. But that doesn't mean that there weren't times when that person just said, "Hey," right? So I think the longer we go with someone, the more conditional sort of fades away. But those conditions are always there. My wife will tell you. I'm annoy the crap out of her, I'm sure, on many occasions.
You know what? We all do that to each other, but I also believe
Right.
that we're here to grow.
Right. This is true. That's the human condition. I write about it at length. All right.
Mhm.
But unconditional love is that pure light. It's pure. It's unconditional. Conditional means there's darkness in it. If I said I loved you, except for that dark part of you I won't care to have.
Mhm.
You see?
Yeah.
That's the condition that we put on each other. I love you, except for that darkness that you carry around. I don't want that anymore. Like my brother. There's a darkness in his heart, but I love him.
Mm.
But I still know that it's toxic. And I want to be with him. And I pray, "Dear God, how do I do this?" But God doesn't want me to be in a toxic relationship. And that's what love really is. It truly is. Unconditional love is paying someone's debt and forgetting about all the darkness that they have and accepting that as their own. And I've paid it. And nobody can do that. Nobody does that. Only Jesus can do that. You'll experience what unconditional love truly is. And that is exactly what it means. My debt was paid, and I am so sorry every time I mess up because I'm like, he's already paid my debt. I'm doing it again. Right? That's unconditional love. And that's the only possibility for it to exist. It's not from you or I or for my wife and I. We have conditions all the time, but Jesus Christ is unconditional, right?
No. Wow,
God
we
is good
could
all
go
the time.
on, couldn't we? Oh my
God is
goodness.
good all the time. All the
Yeah.
time.
You know, Kevin, it's down to the part where I would like to ask for those who are feeling connected to your story and really want to go deeper. Can you share any services, offerings, published works, and where people can find you?
Sure.
Please.
First off, I have an email. And I set this email up because I've had so many people, thousands actually, that have asked to, whether it's on a Facebook ad or something or other, and I'm like, "Listen, I want to hear your story. I want to talk to you. If you want to talk to me, I want to hear." I teach the 7 habits of highly effective people. So I'm pretty deep into Stephen Covey's habit number 5, which is seek first to understand before I'm understood. And so my email that people can always reach me on, and I do respond, by the way, it's Kevin Mohatt, Mohatt, author at gmail.com. So Kevin Mohatt, Mohatt, author at gmail.com. And so I've kind of separated out my other world and the emails, and it gets crazy because I'm not kidding you. My email box will get loaded pretty quick, and I sit down and I answer everybody. And if I can offer some help, I will. If I just need to say, I'm glad you shared that, I will. Also, I have just published a book that Anna Marie was going to help me write. And I was told by a man who I was helping that he would write my book. I've got good news and I got bad news. And the bad news is I'm not going to write your book. And the good news is you're going to write your book. And we prayed about it, meditated on it, and I decided that it was true. God worked in my heart, and I'd never written a book before. And so I just started to type, and I just started to write, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. And a young lady that had found me on Facebook because of one of our conversations that I had, she said, I've been led to call you and to talk to you. I think I want to help you with your book. And we spoke. And her name is Amy, and she's my publisher now. She'd published a couple of little things, and we worked it out. And I wrote my book, and she put it back and forth to her, and she edited it for me. And so the book is named Not Yet, Not Yet. Tomorrow Has Just Begun. That's the name of the book. It's on Amazon. It's going to be on Ingram Sparks. There's a book, an actual physical book. It's on an ebook for people that just want to put it on your phone or whatnot. And I've just finished, in this room, matter of fact, the audiobook. And I do the audiobook myself. It's taken a little bit of effort. I'm a musician, so I understand how to record, but there's some specifics to the recording that I needed to get figured out. So it's all done and it's been uploaded. So as of today, I suppose it'll be 10 to 12 days before that'll be available. But it's me. I just narrate the book that I've written. And
is that for Audible?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's all on Amazon and what's it called? The ebook is KDP, I guess. And then the audio book is on Audible, but it's also mine. So it'll be on Spotify likely here shortly. I know it'll be on iTunes. So if you just Google Not Yet, Tomorrow Has Just Begun, or you can type my name in there. That'll probably come up too. You could find that. The book itself, I'm real proud of. I'm not really after, to me, it's not a money thing. It's never been that. But I can tell you, people that have read it now, it just went on the market, and I've had a bunch of people read the book and email me right away. So I guess I did a good job. And I pray about it all the time. It's not me. It's God's blessing. If it works, it touches in the right way. So it's a pretty raw book. I tell it like it is, and I explain. I don't sugarcoat anything, and it's the way it happens. So, and there's a lot more than what we talked about. But if people would do that, I think that'd be great. If not, just email me. We'll say, hey.
And I will make sure I have all of that information in the description box below.
Right. And anybody hearing this, I public speak. I've given so many speeches now on this. I've lost count actually. I just have people out of nowhere email me, Kevin, I got a group of 30 people. Can you come talk to me? I'm like, sure. Where are you? And we hook up and I go talk. And I've been a public speaker, so my mother gave me the gift of gab, so I got that going for me.
Well, I'm happy that you do, and I'm happy that you're here. Everyone returns with a truth. What truth did you return with that you would want humanity to know right now?
3 things. God is very real. Be someone's miracle every day. Therefore, miracles happen every day. And heaven is incredibly indescribable. Yep.
Kevin, beautiful. And I'd like to add to that. Can I add to your question? Is never leave home without saying, I love you.
Oh boy.
Mhm.
Let me tell you what, that in itself, what a way to start a book. I mean to
Yeah.
tell you, we often talk about that. My wife has had a terrible breast cancer, and
Oh,
she made it through that. And that was our first experience of almost losing a mate. I almost lost her several times, and it was real dire at some point. And that grew us. Our roots are very
yeah.
tight together, but we're still married people. Like I say, we love each other, but it's conditional. Apparently on Valentine's Day, I said something to really tick her off, or I didn't do something, or I didn't predict something properly like I supposed to. And next thing you know, we're and yeah,
I think that
we
everybody
later.
will know in the audience and really
Let me tell you.
understand and actually be able to empathize with that. Not everybody's going to get along for 15, 20, 30, 35, 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
you're bound to
that's
fight
hard.
about it.
And that's
That's
commitment
what
as
makes you
well.
last. That's what makes you
Exactly.
last.
That's how you learn to grow with each other and allow each
Yeah.
other to grow too.
We don't even know what we were fighting about. That's how crazy it was. It was
Mm,
just being married. That's what it is. Sometimes you have a little cat fight. We go our separate ways, and
yeah.
then by that end of the night, we're holding hands and watching
Yeah.
TV. Or we go to sleep every night holding each other's hands. That's our way of doing things. And
I love that.
yeah, every night there's. If I ever had to leave town or whatever, it's the worst. I don't like to leave town without her because it's just I don't like to be away.
Yeah.
We're attached at the hip, and sometimes I think that's good enough so she's close enough to smack me upside the head that we're attached so much. But I've married a beautiful woman, and my wife is
She
just
sure
she's an
sounds like
amazing
it.
lady. I
Yeah, she
dedicated the entire
sure.
book to her. Yep,
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah.
Kevin, your story is a powerful reminder that even when everything appears to end, something deeper continues. I
Oh, by
want to,
far.
th- right? I want to thank you for your openness, your courage, and for sharing this experience and your second chance with all of us here on The Returned.
Well, thanks for having me, and I hope that
You bet.
your story gets sent out there, and I hope that we hear from people, and it's all positive. I hope
Yeah,
we did a good job.
it will be. To everyone listening and watching, let this be a gentle reminder that life can change in a single moment, and so can the way you see it. What would you shift if you truly understood how precious life is? Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay open, stay curious, and keep returning to the truth within you.